It never happened. Joe Biden was afraid to speak to the press because he was mentally incompetent in driving our country into the ground. But fortunately, President Trump has been incredibly hard at work cleaning up Joe Biden's messes and making our country great again.
In a sweeping and unprecedented move, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt convened a special press conference on April 30, 2025, opening the doors of the Brady press briefing room not only to the traditional press corps, but also to a diverse array of new media representatives, podcasters, bloggers, YouTubers, and social media influencers joined legacy journalists for a more than 2-hour session that showcased the Trump administration's evolving approach to media, government transparency, and national priorities. A new era of accessibility and transparency. Leavitt began the briefing by declaring President Trump the most transparent and accessible president in U.S. history, underscoring a commitment to engage every media voice, analog or digital. She announced the creation of dedicated new media seats beside the traditional press corps, a tangible sign of the administration's pledge to expand direct communication with the American public. Every voice, every platform has a seat at the table, Leavitt stated, emphasizing the administration's mantra for media relations. This initiative, she explained, is part of a broader new media strategy designed to ensure that the White House's message reaches Americans across all channels, especially as millions increasingly turn to alternative and digital platforms for news. Key topics and policy announcements. 1. Record-setting executive action. Leavitt highlighted the administration's rapid pace in its first 100 hours, with President Trump signing over 300 executive orders. She pledged that this momentum would continue, with the administration relentlessly tackling economic challenges and global threats. 2. Economic policy and federal spending freeze. A major focus of the briefing was the recently announced federal spending freeze. Leavitt clarified that direct assistance to individuals such as Social Security and veterans benefits would not be affected. Instead, the Office of Management and Budget is reviewing discretionary spending to align government expenditures with the president's agenda. She addressed concerns about indirect assistance, such as funding for organizations like Meals on Wheels, reiterating that the freeze targets government waste and inefficiency, not essential services for vulnerable Americans. 3. Immigration enforcement and deportations. Immigration policy took center stage, as Leavitt outlined the administration's efforts to enforce existing laws and prioritize the deportation of illegal immigrants, especially those with criminal records. She stated unequivocally that under the Trump administration's view, anyone who enters the country illegally is considered a criminal, marking a significant shift from previous policy interpretations. If they broke our nation's laws, yes, they are a criminal, Leavitt said. Responding to questions about recent immigration and customs enforcement arrests, she emphasized that the administration is committed to launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history, with a focus on violent offenders, but also including all who have entered illegally. 4. Energy policy and national emergency declaration. Leavitt announced that President Trump had signed an executive order declaring a national energy emergency. The order aims to make America energy dominant by increasing domestic energy supply, which the administration argues is a key driver in reducing inflation and lowering costs for American families. She described the coming months as heralding a Trump energy boom, with policies designed to unleash domestic production and reduce dependence on foreign sources. 5. National security and security details for former officials. Addressing questions about the controversial decision to strip security details from certain former government officials, Leavitt stood firm. She relayed President Trump's belief that taxpayers should not be responsible for lifelong security for former officials, suggesting that those concerned about their safety could seek private protection. 6. Technology leadership, artificial intelligence, and drone oversight. Leavitt spotlighted the administration's efforts to position the United States at the forefront of technological innovation. She announced new directives to reduce bureaucratic barriers in artificial intelligence, including the appointment of David Sachs as the nation's first AI and crypto czar. She also referenced the administration's response to recent drone incidents in New Jersey, with the FAA ordered to accelerate investigations and publicly release findings to ensure transparency and public safety. 7. Political violence and campus safety. The press secretary addressed growing concerns about political violence, particularly on college campuses. She referenced executive orders aimed at holding universities accountable for violent foreign nationals and unrest, reiterating the administration's commitment to protecting free speech and public safety in academic environments. Media accountability and the truth mandate. A recurring theme throughout the briefing was the administration's stance on media accountability. Leavitt pledged to provide truthful information from the podium and challenged the assembled journalists, legacy, and new media alike to hold themselves to the same standard. We know for a fact there have been lies that have been pushed by many legacy media outlets in this country about this president, about his family, and we will not accept that. We will call you out when we feel that your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House, Leavitt asserted. This combative posture toward established media, coupled with the embrace of new digital voices, marks a distinct shift in White House communications strategy. Welcoming the online creator community, Leavitt encouraged content creators across platforms, TikTok, YouTube, podcasts, to apply for White House press credentials through a transparent vetting process. This, she said, would ensure security while protecting the public's right to information. She described the April 30th briefing as the embodiment of the White House's new media vision: open, transparent, and attuned to the digital age. As the youngest press secretary in history, Leavitt expressed pride in leading this initiative to strengthen direct connections between the administration and both legacy journalists and tomorrow's content creators. Reactions and implications. The April 30th press conference drew praise from some quarters for its inclusivity and transparency. While critics questioned whether the administration's aggressive stance toward legacy media would further polarize the national conversation, supporters of the new approach argue that it democratizes access to information and reflects the changing landscape of news consumption. Detractors warn that the White House's growing reliance on sympathetic digital creators could blur the line between journalism and advocacy. Regardless, the event set a new precedent for White House media relations, signaling that the administration intends to bypass traditional gatekeepers and speak directly to the public on its own terms. Conclusion. Karoline Leavitt's April 30th, 2025 press conference was more than a routine briefing. It was a statement of intent. By inviting new media to the table, reaffirming a commitment to transparency, and aggressively promoting the administration's policy agenda, Leavitt and the Trump White House signaled a new era in presidential communications. From immigration and energy to technology and media accountability, the briefing covered the full spectrum of national priorities. As the administration continues to implement its ambitious agenda, the eyes of both legacy and new media and the American public will be watching closely.